Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Buchheit. I'm a member of Haddonfield Friends Meeting, and I am informally the host of this gathering tonight, at least for the first part of it. What's taking place tonight is actually part of a broader program that Haddonfield Meeting has instituted within the past year on social justice. And we have previously had programs involving David Austin and a book he wrote called Small Miracles, which was about the Holocaust. We have had a book discussion about the book Caste, which is a particularly well-known book. And tonight we are privileged to have a discussion that revolves around our friend Robert Rocky Wilson. And as many of you know, Rocky, among other things, is an author, having authored 3 books. And certainly Rocky's books, his poetry, will be a part of the meeting tonight. But we do have a somewhat different purpose tonight, and that is consistent with our social justice series to ask Rocky to share a little bit with us about his journey in his life to this point, which is, I think he said himself in the delightful film that he made when he received the Freedom Award from Camden County, has been an unorthodox lifestyle, to use Rocky's words. The way the program will proceed tonight is the first half of the evening, which will be no more than 90 minutes and perhaps less, will be a discussion between Rocky and myself about his life, really. And then the second part of the proceeding will be open for discussion, comments, interactions from anyone tonight involving who wants to participate with Rocky. And that portion of the meeting will be run by Veronica Salaam, who is also a member of Meeting. I should also point out that Linda Lotz, who is on your screen, is done a tremendous amount of work to make this series, and tonight in particular, possible. So thanks to Veronica, thanks to Linda, and thanks to Rocky for being present. As I said, everyone will be muted during the first part of the proceeding, both to cut down on the possibility of background noise and to make for a better connection. Rocky's new telephone number is in the chat, I believe. I also point out that Rocky's books are available at several locations, including Moonstone Books and Inkwood Books in Haddonfield, which I am familiar with, a delightful local bookstore. And I do believe there are still some complimentary copies left at the bookstore of Rocky's book, The Last Bus to Camden. So with that done, Rocky, good evening. You've had a lot going on since we planned this.
He's asleep. He fell asleep. Wake up, Mr. Rocky. You're on. You're on. Wake up. Wake up. Oh.
So Rocky and Bongo, welcome to this evening. It's delightful to have you here. As many of us, perhaps all of us know, you've had some unexpected things going on in your life in the past 6 weeks or so. And why don't we start with you sharing with us all, to the extent you're comfortable, what happened, what you've done in response, and where you are now. What's going on now?
I went down to Cape May to take my monthly swim in the ocean. And then I went back to the Grand Hotel to get in the hot tub. But I first went to the shower to wash off the sand. And that was my big mistake on the way from the shower to the hot tub. I felt like I stepped on soap or something. It was like a cartoon, and before I knew it, I was on the floor and I couldn't move. So they uh they operated the next day at Cape May Regional and put a titanium kind of pin or whatever they call it, down my leg. So they said if I break it again, it's already fixed.
That's convenient.
Yeah. So
So,
I see the doctor, the orthopedic doctor, on Thursday. So we'll see what she says then.
so you were in the hospital for approximately how long?
Uh, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and I think I went to rehab in Collingswood on Tuesday.
And you are where now?
Media, which I do not believe is on the main line.
Staying with a friend, is that correct?
Yeah, Joanne. Yeah.
And as we've also alluded to, you now have a cell phone that your friends can use to contact you. So tell us, Rocky, what was your interaction with the medical system during this unusual time? How was it? What was your
Let me
perception?
just tell you, okay? Let me just tell you. Last Thursday, they got a van to take me to Pennsylvania Presbyterian Hospital at 1:30. We got there on time. I went upstairs to the 7th floor, and guess what they said? They said, "Oh, the doctor has canceled all appointments for today." So I had to go all the way back with no seeing the doctor. And I was pretty upset, and Bongo was pretty upset. But we did get to see Phil, we did get out of kind of jail because I was in quarantine. And so they never called. They, I guess they called my home phone and the message machine was full. And then they never called the rehab place in Collingswood where I was. So now I have an appointment this Thursday, and we're crossing our fingers that they're going to be there this time.
Yeah, good luck to you and Bongo about that. It sounds very frustrating what you've had to go through in terms of the medical system.
Yeah, I mean, they could have at least let us know.
Right, right, right. So let's talk. We're glad, Rocky, that you're settled in after rehabilitation, and we wish you well, obviously, in the days, weeks, months ahead in terms of your rehabilitation. Share with us. You're welcome. Share with us a little bit about what life has been like pre-accident for you in Camden since the pandemic began, please. Um, you know, Many of us have rarely, if ever, been to Camden, and certainly not since the pandemic began. Um, so you really have a unique insight you can share with us as to what life has been like for the past year there.
Well, my salvation was going to the shore. I would take the train down to Atlantic City with my bike and bike down there and down Atlantic City. You didn't really feel like you were in a pandemic. People were drinking beer on the boardwalk and, you know, going on the beach and walking down the boardwalk. And the first time I went, I got off the train. There was me and one other guy. And the worker on the railroad said, "You're the only two people on the whole train?" I said, "I guess so." So that was one of my salvations. I couldn't stay home. I couldn't sit in the house and then another was a friend of mine. He had people over for my birthday and 4th of July and Easter and Christmas. And so that was a special for me too. And, I guess I didn't, Well, I missed our bar. Our bar was closed for a long time. The Victor Pub, which looks out over Philadelphia.
Right, right, right.
And finally they reopened. And then it's been better ever since then. Ever since the bar opened.
I noticed, I know that the pandemic has hit Camden, your hometown now, particularly hard. I was seeing that per 1,000 people of population, it had 115 cases of COVID for every 1,000 people, as opposed to Haddonfield, for example, which only had 47 cases of COVID per 1,000 people. So it's just a much more prevalent situation in Camden was in
Yeah, I didn't even know that. I didn't know that part.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So do you have any poetry you could share with us at this point that would relate to sort of what you've been experiencing pandemic and accident-wise?
No. I've written like 4 or 5 cards since this happened. I have poems, other poems from, the books, but I don't have any new poems about this.
Do you want to share any poetry with us at this
Oh,
point?
I do have a pandemic poem. Sign on the bank door. Must wear mask and gloves. Can we pack heat too?
How did you come up with that, Rocky? When did
I went to the bank and saw the sign. You got to wear a mask and gloves to go in the bank.
Yeah, yeah.
Can we carry a gun too?
A strange time, to say the least, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So let's go way back. Let's go back to growing up in Haddonfield. And I'm really interested in you sharing with us what that was like. And then I'd like to ultimately bring that back to you living much of your adult life in Camden. So what can you share with us about your experience in terms of growing up in Haddonfield? And obviously, for any of these things, anytime you feel called to speak with a poem or anything else, please do.
Okay. Well, I grew up on Hopkins Lane, across from Hopkins Pond. I was born in Camden. I stayed in Camden 3 days. My parents took me to Hopkins Lane in Haddonfield, and I lived there until I guess I was in graduate school. My parents split up. So we had a maid, colored woman, we said back then, and our neighbors had a maid, and her name was Mrs. Brown, and she had a son named Morris. So somehow must have been 5 years old, if that. They got Morris and me hooked up in a boxing match. Maybe because my name was Rocky, I don't know, but Morris killed me. He was from Camden, and from then on, I knew Camden was a tough place to be from.
When did you get the name Rocky? Did that come from when you were growing up in Haddonfield, or how did you get the name Rocky?
Well, my government name is Robert III, Robert M. Wilson III. So at that time I was born, my grandfather was alive and my father was alive. So one was Robert, one was Bob. And they wanted another name for me. So my mother went to the hospital June 15th with the labor pains. And she checked into a room and the doctor came. And by the time the doctor got there, the pains had subsided. So he said, I think this is false labor. You can go home. So 2 days later, on her birthday, June 17th, she got the pains again. And the doctor said, I think it's real this time. Come on in. So she went to the hospital. It was 9:30 at night. And my mother said to the doctor, she said, Doctor, if he's not born soon, he won't be born on my birthday, because June 17th was her birthday. And it was getting close to midnight. So I heard her and I said, Mama, I'm coming out. And I came out. I said, Happy birthday, Mom. And she said, this is the best present I ever got. And she said that every year until I was a teenager. And then she stopped saying it. But so anyway, then they were, I guess, in the hospital room or something. And my father got the bill. And they charged him, I think at that time it was like $10 or something. They charged him for that day. My mother just checked in and out with the false labor. They charged him for a whole day. So he looks at the bill and he's complaining. And my uncle says, you got to be Rockefeller to pay for that baby. And my Aunt Bunny, who was quick, she said, oh, why don't you call him Rocky? So they called me Rocky, and they got pictures of me with these huge boxing gloves on when I was a tiny baby. So that's, I feel like that's my real name.
So you've been Rocky your whole life. Is
Yep.
that right? You never know a time when you weren't Rocky. That's a great story. I never heard that. So obviously Haddonfield's a privileged community. It is not a diverse community racially. What was your life like growing up in Haddonfield? Was it good? Was it normal? Was it abnormal? I mean, what was your experience growing up in Haddonfield?
Oh, I remember Little League that Norman, he was a colored boy from Ellis Street. All the black folks lived on Ellis Street, a lot of them anyway. And he wanted to borrow my first baseman's mitt because I was a pitcher and I guess outfielder. But for some reason, I didn't let him borrow it. My father went out and bought him a glove. And there was some talk about that, that I don't know. It was something that I wasn't really proud of, and I don't know why I didn't just let him use my glove, but I don't know if I was racist already or what. So anyway, we played the whole season together, and then I think they fixed up a lot of those houses on Ellis Street, so a lot of the black folks couldn't afford them anymore, and they moved to Camden, and we lost a lot of great athletes from that too. So that was kind of sad. And,
It is. Did you play athletics yourself?
I played football and baseball and some basketball. Yeah. And then our high school class, our valedictorian, I think you'd call it, was Phyllis Jenkins, and she was a black girl. So she was the brightest, I guess, in our whole school.
So there was some diversity in the school and in the town.
And her father was a mailman, and he would whistle. He was so happy and so cheerful and so, even now I remember him, remember the joy he would bring besides the mail was his own presence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So any poetry you want to share with us about your growing up in Haddonfield?
Well, it's a little beyond Haddonfield, but I guess it'll give you an idea. It's called Traveling. My prejudice sometimes rises like the white ice that sank the Titanic. Out west, I saw dark-skinned and dark-haired people. I read aloud in the memoir class I was taking. What are Spics doing out here? Then I realized they were from Broken Arrow and not West Side Story. Funny, I didn't know a Puerto Rican from a Sioux. During the critique, an older Quaker woman said she couldn't get past Spics, but it was what my friend Norman Myers called the men who worked his father's farm in South Jersey. And it was the word I carried west with me to South Dakota. The following summer, I used the N-word in a poem at a bar in San Francisco's North Beach. A Black poet tried to say in the nicest way possible that it wasn't a good idea, but I was too lame to listen. A week later, in line for water at a Rainbow Tribe gathering, I made a racial slur and got called for it, but not condemned, by a young white hippie. Today, I live in a mostly Black and Puerto Rican city, and I still find myself counting the number of white basketball players on the 76ers. I often try to skip a lot of steps on the stairs Langston Hughes' mom climbed. But then the words of an old Quaker lady will sit me down, and I'll find it hard to move with all that frozen white inside me. So I'll just sit there on the marble stoop and sing something softly to myself, like, we shall overcome. I'll sing it over and over like a mantra until something cold and hard and very white inside me begins to melt.
Wow. That is very profound, Rocky.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. When did you write that? How long ago?
There was a Quaker writing group. Brad Sheets was leading at 15th Cherry Street meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that was 10 years ago.
Would you write the same thing today? How have you evolved in the last 10 years in relationship to that writing?
Well, I'll read another poem, I guess.
Okay. Thank you.
When I was at Gettysburg College, they let one Black person in a year so they could say they weren't prejudiced. And of course, the one that came in, I guess the year before me, he was a real good athlete from Cherry Hill, Phil Parsons. And in my fraternity, I joined a fraternity, pledged a fraternity. This guy, he would put down Black people a lot. And I talked to one of my friends in the fraternity, and they said, oh, he lived with them. He knows all about them. So, and none of us could really say we lived with Black people, except for him. And I guess he didn't have a very good experience. So now I can say I lived with Black people too. There are no movie houses left in Camden. Guess who's coming to dinner? The marquee on the old Stanley Theater asked, and I had ventured in from the suburbs to find out. I saw Sidney Poitier sit down to eat with the white people. I never dreamed that one day I would be living a few blocks away, right next to the hospital where I was born. Never dreamed that a mother of color whose sons broke into my house when I went out would invite me to dinner. Never dreamed that a few months later there would be a birthday cake with my name on it. Never dreamed that one Sunday this family would take me to church and rock my Presbyterian upbringing to its roots. Rock of my soul in the bosom of Abraham, oh, rock of my soul. Never dreamed that on a take me out to the ball game Saturday, I'd be escorted out of Vet Stadium because the two boys who had done most of the stealing from me had poured their cokes down on people in the lower level. No, I never dreamed I could become so detached from material things like the clock, radio, the fan, and typewriter. Never dreamed a Black family would be calling me Uncle Rocky. Never dreamed that one of the kids, when asked, "How can a white man be your uncle?" would answer firmly, "He is too our uncle." Never dreamed that years after that first dinner, I'd be standing before a sea of brown faces, reading a eulogy I had written for Mom Sumter. No, I never dreamed how rich I could become in the poorest city in America.
I love that poem, Rocky. I think that's the last poem in your book, Last Bus to Camden, right? It's the final poem. It's a great final poem. It's one of my favorites that you've written.
Thanks a lot, Scott.
It just says, it speaks to me, and I think to a lot of other people. How did you come? How did you come to live in Camden? I mean, I've heard this sort of different, but it is obviously an unusual path for someone who grew up in Haddonfield to end up living most of his adult life in Camden. How did it happen?
I was living on a commune in northern Vermont. We did maple sugaring. We had vegetables. We had our own river. We had 180 acres of woods in Vermont. It was beautiful. So I forget what made me come down. I picked apples, and then I guess I went back to New Jersey. And I needed a place to live. I was staying with my mom, but my mom and stepdad had a small place. So I got the Courier Post and looked for places to live, and one of them was in Haddonfield. So I went there, and it was $27 a week. So I had another ad to check out, which was in Camden. It was across from the old Camden Convention Hall. So I went there, 330 Carteret Street. I knocked on the door. A lady answered and said, my name's Martini, but I'm not Italian. I'm English." I said, "Well, my name's Rocky, and I'm not Italian either." So she had me in, she showed me into the kitchen. I saw some roaches scurrying around in the kitchen. She showed me the bedroom. It was a nice sunny room. There was a huge crucifix of Jesus hanging over the bed. So I said, "Well, if I took the room, that would have to go." And she said, "What's the matter? Are you Jewish?" And I said, "No, I'm not Jewish, but I grew up Presbyterian. We didn't have Jesus himself hanging on the cross." So then I looked out the window and I could see Cooper Hospital. I thought, if I take this room and people ask me how far I've come in life, I could say literally 50 yards from where I was born. So at the door, she says, "Do you want the room?" And in my mind, I had a big fat no all prepared. But when I opened my mouth, you might guess what I said. I said yes. And I've been in Camden ever since.
I've heard you. I've heard that before, but I still don't understand why yes came out of your mouth rather than no. I mean, look, for all the rest of us, when we were in that type of situation, we all said no, or we didn't put ourselves in that situation. Why did you say yes? Why did yes come out of your mouth at that point?
I didn't want to say yes. I wanted to say no.
But why did you say yes?
You tell me.
I don't know.
Why did I?
I mean, I so admire it. I mean, I really admire it. But it's by saying that one word sent you on a whole different course in life than if you had said no. And share with us a little bit about what your journey's been in Camden in terms of getting sort of accepted in the community, becoming part of the community, and living in the community.
Well, I lived at Mrs. Martini's house for, I guess, a couple of years. And then I had some friends that lived on right by the Bridge Plaza, a little street called Rex Place. So that all night you heard the bridge. That's when people paid, a quarter or whatever it was. Everybody paid. There was no easy pass or anything. So these people were kind of fun. One night, late at night, when there wasn't much traffic, they made a car out of themselves, like a mime car, and drove up to the Bridge Plaza, toll plaza, and gave the guy 50 cents. And another time there was a huge snowfall, and they got a dummy, the legs of a dummy, and stuffed it into the this huge mound of snow. So it looked like somebody was actually stuck in the snow. So these guys were fun, and it was lively, and they started the soup kitchen, which I got involved with, and fed people every night or all during the week across the street at this place where they served the food and the whole thing. And we began, Johanna and I would make sandwiches. And I'd take the mustard and make a little smiley face on the bread. And then we'd put cheese and bologna and another piece of bread on it. And then we had dented cans of Campbell's soup. So we gave that out to people. And that grew into a casserole program, and that kept growing until like 5 years ago, they opened a huge cathedral kitchen in Camden on Federal Street, on land that had belonged to my stepfather. And they used a shovel from my stepfather's store to break the ground. And it was like, oh my God, from those little sandwiches with a smiley face, mustard, bologna, cheese, bread, and a dented can of soup, these people were getting dental help. They were able to take showers there. They were able to get jobs. They were able to eat and take food home with them. And they have a little restaurant now, their own restaurant. And just like a little seed and how it can grow. And I was so honored to be part of that whole scenario. And that was just, that was something I got involved with. I also substitute taught in Camden, and the kids would drive me wacky until finally this little boy from New York State, he made me a puppet, and I took the puppet into class, and all the kids got quiet. I said, oh my God, this is like a miracle. It was a miracle, Mr. Rocky. And those puppets saved your life. I think it's time for the poem I'm in.
Yes.
Maybe you're right, Bongo. Maybe you're right. Let's see. A poem that Bongo's in would have to be Local Anthem. I live in Camden, see, not exactly what people have in mind when they sing home of the brave and land of the free. But my angels have gotten me out of some tight squeezes. The crackhead's knife missed my lung by half an inch. A young girl once pleaded and pushed me off a mean street in Parkside. I had been her substitute teacher, and she called me bad, which meant I was good. Then this gang saw me jogging over by Camden High and was ready to bust me up when they saw a monkey on my hand and realized, hey, this dude is the puppet man. What saves our lives? A sixth grade girl, a little cloth monkey, a dull knife, and angel's wings brushing through the ghetto night. An angel's wings brushing through the ghetto night.
What is it, Rocky, that the rest of us don't understand about Camden? Those of us who've had little contact with Camden, but only living there, what is it that we don't understand about the city?
I don't know. The thing I wrote about Camden was, all my friends and family, what are you doing in Camden? What are you doing in Camden? I said, well, Camden's got soul. And that's why I stay. Where the Camden's got soul, that's why I stay. Where the beggars always hide their crowns. Where the pigeons make the sweetest sounds. And the kids will give you smiles and laughs that will resound through the rest of your life. And Michael Doyle said, Camden has three treasures: the river, the people, and Walt Whitman. And you get to know all three things in Camden, especially the people. So I went by Walt Whitman's house. The guy was sitting on the step. I said, is Walt home? Walt Whitman. He said, no, he went out for pizza 6 months ago and he never came back. You get creativity from the people. You get a guy said he was complaining about all the taxes. He said, they gutted my paycheck. They got that language. They got that life. They got that soul. They got, I don't know. They got what I was missing growing up, I guess. And I was lucky to find it just 8 miles away in the most depressed city. The most dangerous city, they called it, in the United States. The poorest city in the United States. Whatever. But what do they say? Don't judge a book by its cover. You.
Rocky, thanks for sharing that. That was really, that meant a lot to me. And I suspect other people that you were willing to open yourself up and share that. I want to, speaking of opening it up, I want to soon open this up to other people. But before I do, is there anything else you want us to know, hear, experience from you this evening?
Well, we do have a children's book called The Lucky Monkey.
Great book. I love it.
Oh, thanks. They have this at Inkwood and also at Moonstone Press in Philadelphia. Or you can, the Moonstone, I don't know if they have this one, but I have this at home, and anybody's interested in a gift for a child. It's illustrated. All the illustrations are done by children in Camden. I had an art class and I didn't really know what to do in the class. And then I thought, well, let me tell them a story. So I told them a true story about losing Bongo. And then I had them draw pictures. And when I looked at the pictures, I thought, you know, these pictures would make a good story. They would, illustrate a story. So that was kind of cool to have done that with the kids. And I hope to have another chapbook coming out soon. I entered it in a contest with Moonstone also. So I guess I'll hear in a little while from them.
What type of book, Rocky? You said what type of book you hope to have coming out?
It's called a chapbook. It's a little smaller than Last Bus to Camden. It's like this. It's like 25 pages. And let's see, this is Tuesday. Saturday, I think Saturday's the 10th.
Yes.
I'm doing a reading actually at the Nick Virgilio Haiku House in Camden at 2:00 next Saturday. That's for haiku, the Japanese form of haiku. And that should also be on Zoom too, but I think people can also attend that. It'll be in the backyard, hopefully weather permitting. And hopefully we'll get in a pizza and poetry at the end of this month at the Slice in New York in Camden.
Yeah, when you just
for one of the longest running poetry series.
I just want to say, I think most people on this participating tonight know about pizza and poetry, but in case they don't, you talked about the creativity of the city and the soul of the city in Camden. And certainly, I've been to pizza and poetry, and certainly pizza and poetry is part of that. Why don't you just say a word or two about that?
Oh, well, we started in 1994. We were going to have one day because we found out Emily Dickinson loved pizza. So on her birthday in 1994, December 10th, we had a pizza and poetry there. And people came and we had some beer and pizza. And then what started out as a one night thing, we said, well, let's do it in January for Edgar Allan Poe. And then let's do it in February for Edna St. Vincent Millay, who was from Camden, Maine, that is. And so I guess it's going on 26 or 7 years later.
Yeah.
We're still going.
Talk about a contribution to the city and the creativity and the soul of the city. You've made such a difference, Rocky, in so many ways. And one of the things I really admire of you too, while you've made your life in Camden, you've also stayed connected to those of us in Haddonfield and other places, not just Haddonfield. We see you at Quaker Meeting. We see you lots of places. So, it's an extraordinary spirit you have to stay connected to both places.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Scott.
So there's many other things we could have talked about, obviously, and I'm sure there's some things that other people want to talk about. So at this point, I'm going to turn our gathering over to Veronica Salaam. And Veronica, to the extent other people want to participate, speak with Rocky about anything, ask some questions, share with him, Veronica take over that function in terms of calling on people and also sharing anything that might be in the chat room, which I've not kept track of. And then maybe before we conclude tonight, Rocky, you and I will say a few more words together.
Okay.
Thank you. So Veronica, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Good evening. I just wanted to, Rocky, draw your attention to the chat. There's some well wishes from Louis Troffer, and Jim DeSimone commented best sub at ECDC. And Kitty Mizuno said she loved seeing you in action when you came to Wiggins School as a substitute. And thank you for the inspiration. I think that covers the chat. Did anyone have any questions or comments for Rocky? Dee Dee?
I just want to say that I've known Rocky since I was 13 and he was 12, and he came to Release Time School we had in 8th grade, and that I felt good. Rocky's existence made me feel worth more. You know, he would wave at me, great big football player, wave at me in the hall at school. And when I went to work in Camden, Rocky was around. He was in Cooper's Point all the time. And I actually have a question at the end of this. So I had 3 years of hazing. I just had to stick it out from the famous principal that we all remember, whose name begins with an F. And did you have that period of hazing, Rocky, in Camden?
Oh, I don't remember her bugging me.
What'd you say?
I don't remember her bugging me, no.
You don't remember her what?
Bugging me.
Oh, she didn't bug you.
No, no, she didn't.
Sure bugged me. She said, no, everything's fine except you. You're my problem.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she went out to tell me that I was her problem. So you never had a period of hazing?
No, not from her, no. I don't remember.
Okay.
Okay.
Lucky you. Good.
Yeah, I was. She was tough. That lady was tough, though.
I'll say. She got in street fights with people on the corridors. If the parents came and complained. Oh.
Well, thanks, Dee Dee. It looks like Denise has a question.
Hey, Rocky.
Hey, Venice. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. This has been fabulous. I learned a lot of things I didn't know, and I have 2 questions for you. My first question is, could you share a little bit about your custom of swimming once a month in the ocean? And is that something that you do all year round? You keep to that?
Yeah. I try to. This year I was in every month but February. So I took 2 snow baths. We had a lot of snow in February. So I took 2 snow baths in my bathing suit and made a snow angel to try and make up for it. And then March, I was all excited to get my first swim in March, and I wound up in the hospital.
So when you do a swim, how long do you stay in the water?
Not that long, especially in January.
Okay, thanks for that. And my second question is, Is Walt Whitman your favorite poet? And if not, who is your favorite poet and why?
It's hard to say. I feel like Walt's a friend of mine, you know, we're like neighbors and I love his poetry. I love his life. I love how he gave so much for the soldiers, the wounded soldiers in the war, and just incredible man. And I feel so lucky to be in the same city where he spent so much time. I love Mary Oliver and Galway Canal, because Mary Oliver, I met this woman in Provincetown, and I told her I was going to the Provincetown Work Center to hear a reading by Galway Canal. And she says, "Give Galway a kiss for me." I said, "A kiss? From who?" She said, "From Mary." I said, "Mary?" She said, "Mary Oliver." I said, "You don't look like Mary Oliver. I have a book by Mary Oliver, and you don't look anything like her." And she said, "Well, people change." I'm looking around the room. This was at a church, at a after service get together, you know, coffee hour. And all the people are looking at me and smiling, and I'm going like, "Oh my God, this is Mary Oliver." So when I got to the door to leave, she kisses me on the lips and says, "Give that kiss to Galway."
Oh,
And Galway Canal was a big, rugged Vermonter who you didn't really think about kissing. But at the end of his reading, I went up to him. I said, "This is from Mary Oliver." And I gave him a kiss on the cheek, not on the lips. And he said, "Oh," he said, "well, give her a kiss back from me." And there I was carrying kisses back and forth between the two modern poets that I loved the most. I just floated. My last day there, I floated in the water and I just felt like the sun was kissing me and I was kissing the whole world.
Wow.
Thank you, Rocky.
You're welcome. That's a long answer to a short question.
Jim Rhodes.
Hey, Rocky, it's Jim.
Oh my God, Jim Rhodes.
Hey.
Great first baseman, guys. He could hit a softball miles.
So I just wanted to share with everyone. I guess I moved into Camden in the mid-'70s, and at some point had no choice but to run into Rocky Wilson, and got to know him, you know, beyond the persona, if you will, of you know, who he is and what he's accomplished, but as a friend. And we actually ended up playing softball together, amongst other things, and you know, having a beer together and just commiserating. But you know, eventually I ended up getting married, and I still have a picture of Rocky and myself, or not with me, but Rocky. You'll remember DK Steve and my oldest daughter Sydney, where we had a reception for her first communion, which we did at Sacred Heart with Father Doyle. But standing together at the Grill Bar, which is no longer there in Camden. I just wanted to share with everyone that you know, as brilliant as he seems, as poetic as he appears to be, as kind as everyone imagines him to be, it's all true. He is an amazing human being. We've had the opportunity to share laughs, to share sorrow, to discuss the hard times, in Camden and to discuss the promise in the future. And he is, forever, a part of my Camden experience, a part of my life. But I just wanted everyone to know that Rocky is the real deal, and someone who I've had the good fortune in my life to have met and to have known. And anyway, Rock, sorry I showed up late tonight, but I'm so happy to be here for you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
So,
I believe Sue Hitchcock had a question.
Oh, yes, please. Rocky, hi.
Hi, hey, Sue.
I'm glad to see you without your hat on. I can see you better. We've known each
Hat is
other.
Scotland, okay?
Say that again?
It's from Scotland. It's a very special hat.
Oh, all right. Well, you're here, so that's good. We've known each other a long time through writing, and I never really found out the story, how you got involved with, since I have hearing problems, how you got involved with the sign language. Did you pick that up in college, or was that after you also do the dance and you do a lot of interpretive? So I wondered which came first, and how did you decide to incorporate it with your art, your performance art?
Well, I love dance, and I loved words. So sign language was like a dance of words that you did with your body and your hands.
Yeah.
So I did some poems, I learned sign language for the poems, and I took classes at Haddonfield Adult School and Camden County College and other places.
Okay.
It's a great addition. It's a great addition to
Thank you.
your whole repertoire.
Thanks
Thanks.
a lot, Sue.
Feel better.
Thank you.
Doris Paloon. Doris.
Hi, Rocky. How you doing? I'm Officer Bob,
Yes.
and I'm so glad you have a puppet too.
Oh,
Well, Rocky, I want to say that I'm teaching remotely, 100% remote kindergarten this year, and through through my experience with Bongo, and through the fact that I just happened to have a bag of puppets in my real kindergarten classroom, I thought, how am I going to keep these kids' attention? And I remembered Bongo, how you would use Bongo, and well, Bongo would use you or whatever. And, it worked. It was like a miracle. It was like, I brought it, now these kids are like this, I just bring out different puppets and talk. And so I wanted to thank you for that, because I feel like part of my idea to use that was from your inspiration. But I have a question too. I'm wondering, as being an educator, I'm wondering, I hear things about the school system in Camden and that they're closing schools and everything. And I'm really perplexed about what's going on. I don't know if you have any insight about that, what's going on, but it doesn't seem like a good thing that kids are going to have to travel, 40 minutes perhaps. Do you know anything about that? Or, what can we do? Who's to blame? Or are you as perplexed as I am?
I don't know. When I was subbing, I got a call to go to this school where a whole lot of my friends and all worked. And I walked in the school and it was a whole different, everybody was gone. It was a whole new school, Mastery or something. It wasn't a public school anymore. And they just had one preschool, they had 4 preschool classes, and that's what they needed a sub for. But I was like in shock. It was like, oh my God, what happened? And I have no idea what's going on in that school system.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it was a case of, charter schools, people wanting to send, or some people that could, do it, wanting to send to charter schools or not. I don't know. It's probably too big of a subject for this right now, what we're doing, but just kind of interested in it.
Christie loved the charter school, Governor Christie, and now that Murphy's not such a big guy on them. So I don't know what'll happen, to tell you the truth, but I'm so glad you're using the puppets.
Oh yeah. Oh, thank you. We are too.
All right. Hey, where's your mask, buddy?
Well, I'm a resident of Mrs. Palone's household, so we don't really wear masks, and we're online now. But I do wear them out in public.
Thanks, Doris. Rocky, I don't know if you saw the chat, but Dave Austin said the story, I believe, about Mary Oliver needs to be a poem.
Oh, yeah. I guess you're right. A couple of people have told me that, Dave. Yeah.
I'm not on. Get on that.
Roger Wilco.
Barbara Atkinson had something she wanted to share.
Hi, Rocky.
Hey, Barbara.
I grew up in Morristown, which is a town like Haddonfield, which is like it has a downtown or did, Main Street, etc. So I could tell some stories about Rocky and Camden and about how he left me to fend for myself on the high-speed line late at night. But this poem is not about Camden, it's about the shore, which has also been mentioned, the Jersey Shore, and it's about a gallant act that he performed. Bringing the towel. Outdoors was the operative word that pandemic summer. At the top of our bucket and shovel lists was the beach. For some in our group that day, it was essential to enter the ocean. It was as essential as company or refreshment to enter the ocean. Earlier, you did your play with the surf, tan and tie-dyed, monkey off your back. I was the last to shed sandals and shirt, to flirt with the waves, forward, back, each cycle a slight advance until the dive under the breakers to float on the still waters. It was still September, but not as warm as the last trip, and the tide in was higher. As I rowed back to the shore, I expected to be watched and to shiver as my ankles found land. I faced the ocean, lingering, turned around, astonished, into the arms of a towel stretched out in offering, a fantasy of shelter come true and perfectly timed.
Oh. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's a picture of you with that towel.
Did we have any more questions? Pam? You have to unmute.
Mine's not a question, but as is my practice, I read Faith and Practice or something during meeting, and I knew Rocky was coming. And I read an extract in the Quaker Faith and Practice, extract 113. It says, what was perhaps most characteristic of early friends was that they thought of their testimonies not in terms of words or propositions, but in terms of what they did, the way they lived their lives. Testimony for them was to do truth. What we now call the testimony were early friends' actions in the world, bearing witness to the truth they had experienced. Their testimony was an outward, visible manifestation of an inward transformation. This truth affected all aspects of their life. And when I read that, I thought of Rocky. I think he's a guy who does truth. Now, he also writes poetry and performs and speaks, but he walks the walk, and I'm glad he's my friend.
Oh, thank you, Pam.
Dee Dee?
Rocky, I'm not going to talk to you this time. I'm going to talk to Blake. There Blake is sitting, and I haven't seen Blake in 15 years. Hi, Blake. That's all I want to say. I hope you're doing well, Blake.
Yeah, hello. I'm doing good.
I'm glad. Bravo, you. Okay.
I have a story about Rocky. Rocky and I were acquaintances. We seem to run into each other every 5 years or so. But I was in the hospital in the 80s, and I was laying in bed after being hit by a car. And suddenly this little puppet came around the corner and started talking to me. And Rocky said he was there visiting the kids and that he saw my name on the list and he came up to visit. And I just want to let you know, Rocky, that I still think about that at times.
Oh, great. Great, thanks.
I believe we might be at the end of our questions. Scott, did you?
Yeah, let me just, thank you, Veronica. Let me just conclude with a few things here. First of all, reference has been made quite a bit tonight to Quakerism. There's obviously a number of Quakers on the with us tonight, but some who are not Quakers and may not know a lot about Quakerism. And I would encourage any people in the latter category to reach out to any of us about that, because we proudly claim Rocky as our own, even though, as he said, he grew up Presbyterian. By the way, Rocky, when did you make the transition from being a Presbyterian to being, I'll say you're a Quaker, certainly in spirit, if not in membership roles?
I met a woman in Maine, and she was drawing peace signs on the beach. And I think she had been a Quaker for years. And she was a Sufi now. But that stuck with me. And I think when I went back to Camden, Maine, I went to a little meeting out in the woods. And then I just started going to Quaker meetings and FGC gatherings and different things like that.
Well, we're
and then a little boy at Quaker meeting, a little boy at the Quaker meeting in New York State, he made me a puppet. And that was my first puppet. So I guess Bongo's a Quaker too.
And we're certainly glad you both are. Two more questions and then I have a favor to ask, okay? Next to the last question, as I mentioned before, you've kept a leg in Haddonfield while you've kept most of your body in Camden. When Camden and Haddonfield play each other in sports, which they've done a number of times in recent years in big games, who do you root for?
It's very hard for me to root against Haddonfield, you know, growing up there, playing on the teams. So I guess I still root for Haddonfield.
All right. Well, we appreciate your support. And my final question is, many years from now, when it's all said and done, what do you hope they say about you?
I hope they say it was mostly the monkey, but Mr. Rocky was a good guy too.
Well, Mr. Rocky was certainly a good guy, and the tribute that's been paid to you is a good guy and will be for many years to come. And the tributes that have been paid to you tonight are really pretty amazing. And what you shared with us tonight has been a real blessing as we all pursue our own journeys towards social justice. We have so much to learn from each other. And Rocky, you've, as Pam mentioned, by the way you lived your life, taught us all so much.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. So we've asked a lot of you tonight, and here's the final thing I'm going to ask. On this beautiful spring night, when all day long I've been looking at so many gorgeous daffodils, would you please bless us by reading your poem, Rita, My Mother Saw Daffodils?
Yeah, I have to add that Judy and Wayne sent me a whole bouquet of daffodils at the rehab center, along with some chocolate chip cookies that were really out of sight. So that was a real treat. Rita, my mother saw daffodils. Rita, I remember our conversation. Old wood begins to sprout leaves. Trees grow where desks stand. The history of the people carved into them. Meanwhile, Jackson Pollock's mom continues to mess up her apron with all kinds of colorful food, hoping the grandchildren will catch the hint Jackson did and paint. It was so many beets and tomatoes and mustard squeezes ago. It's hard to remember all the debts we owe. My mother saw daffodils. I was cleaning her windows for her and dropped the yellow paper towels on to the grass. But she didn't see a messed up yard. She saw daffodils. She saw daffodils.
Thank you, Rocky.
Oh, thank you for asking. Thank you.
May we all see daffodils in our life in the time ahead. So, unless Linda or Veronica or Rocky, you have anything else to conclude with, I would just say thanks again to Rocky for the gifts you shared with us tonight. We all wish you continued progress in your journey back to recovery from the accident you've had. You've been amazing tonight. And I thank everyone for their presence and contributions to the evening we've had. It's certainly been enlightening to me, and I hope to you also.
Oh, great.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.